All right, it is just a little bit past 4 o'clock, 4:01. I'm Tim Wolf, I'm the village manager. I've been here for 20 years, give or take at this point in time. So much so I had to get a new photo for this because the other one I had hair and was skinny. So right off the bat, pretty simple. We've got a special election coming up on August the 8th. Everyone in the village will be voting at Sherman Township. So even those of us like myself who live in the Broomfield Township half of the village, we were able to consolidate the precincts for this election because it's the only item on the ballot. So everyone will vote in one location, which is a cost saving measure because you don't have to pay for 2 polling places, 2 sets of workers, 2 sets of ballots, 2 sets of publications. So everyone votes at Sherman Township, which is the township that has the most amount of village voters in it. And that township hall is located on Airline Road, just to the west of Old State Road. There's a map on our website to find it. Just like any other election in the state of Michigan, you absolutely can vote absentee. And just like any other regular election, you actually have to be a registered voter in the village to vote on it. So if you own vacant property, but you are a registered voter in Mount Pleasant, Hamtramck, you don't get to vote on it. If you're registered to vote in those locations, not here. What is on the ballot is exactly what you see right there. It says, shall the village of Lake Isabella levy a new additional millage of up to 3 mills for a period of 12 years for the purpose of funding lake and river improvements, including without limitation, dredging, fishery stocking, and other worker improvements to restore and otherwise improve Lake Isabella and the Chippewa River, together with all work, services, equipment, and related costs necessary or incidental to these improvements. So it is just that. There's no other recreation stuff tied to it. It is specifically just lake and river, and it is up to 3 mills, which is something we'll talk about here in a second. So why are we doing it again? Well, there's a saying from Nelson Mandela that I never lose, I either win or learn. Last year, when we had a joint proposal on the ballot, which was 60% dredging, 40% parks and rec, so trails, dog park, that kind of stuff, that failed by about 34 votes, 51.6 to 48.4%. And so, to use a lovely term, we did a postmortem. Figured out what happened. You know, was it that close? What could we have done different? And so we looked at a lot of different questions. We said, you know, was the ask too much? And almost uniformly, nobody said 2.75 mils was too much of an ask last year. So would a special assessment have been a better option? Because there are 2 different ways we could do this. One is through a vote of the people, or another is a special assessment. The difference being that a special assessment brings in people who are just property owners, but it also throws out residents who are renters. So there's a give and take there. So you would potentially bring in, you know, another 140 waterfront parcels that are owned by vacant, or, you know, they're not PRE properties, but you'd also bring in all the vacant backlot owners as well in the process. Were there differences in how each township voted? So last year, Sherman Township, which is the bulk of our voters, was 50-50. There's a difference of 4 votes in Sherman Township side. The Broomfield Township side was 30 votes to the negative. So why did Broomfield Township strongly, you know, more strongly oppose it than the Sherman side? You know, what we figured out was we didn't really have a lot of rec options planned for that side, so there wasn't a big incentive down there. And then should the proposals have been separated? Well, for those of you who are conspiracy theorists, looked at your social media. Next door, the most informed corner of the internet. So we had comments that we found, you know, like put it on a separate ballot and you've got my vote. All they need to do is put dredging on a millage by itself. Then they should have separated the proposal into 2. We are all for the dredging, but everything else is a hard no. So that's why we're here. So what's the difference between 2022 and 2023? So last year we were seeking a bond proposal for 2.75 mils. 60% of that was going to go towards dredging, 40% towards parks and rec, and that was crafted by just the village and the association. This year, looking at that feedback that we did after the election, the committee that was crafted is a mix of village, LIPOA, and community at large members. So we have 3 from the village, 3 from the association, and 3 members from the community at large. It is 100% directed towards dredging and lake and river restoration. There's no dog park, trails, water pad, water splash park, any of that. None of that's there. It's all lake and river. And the proposal ask is 3 mills. So why might we do a millage as opposed to a bond? Well, last year was a bond proposal, and we needed that one-time lump sum injection to do the capital improvement projects for the Parks and Rec side of the equation. So when you're looking at doing trails and those type of things, those are very cost-intensive projects on the front end. So we needed that one-time lump sum injection on the front end. A millage is a more continual ongoing revenue stream that we can manage as we need to throughout the life of the project. Another downside on the debt is the bond side is the debt service. So when you take out a bond, you have to pay it back, and you're taking out essentially a loan from somebody, so you're going to be paying interest. On a bond issue of that size, roughly about 18% of every dollar that would have been paid by the taxpayer would have went towards debt service. So that's a pretty hefty amount. And also with the bond, you're locked in. You take out that money on the front end of the project, and you've got to pay that money no matter what you do with it. If you go through your project and you come in under budget, you're left with a pile of cash that you got to spend, which isn't really, I think, a wise way to manage the public's money. And it's also more restrictive due to the tax exempt status on municipal bonds. So looking at these options, the village and the association definitely agreed that a millage was a more sensible route to take when it comes to a project like we are proposing, or just doing dredging. So the millage rate is actually a cap. It can be lowered if we need to in the future. So if we get into year 6 of the project and there's not 3 mills worth of work, we don't need to levy 3 mills that year. We can levy 1, we can levy 2. With a bond, you're levying that amount every year because you've got to pay that debt service every year. Now, a millage doesn't require debt, but it does give us the flexibility. If we needed to bond out against that revenue, we could. We're not planning to, but if you had a large project where you needed to do that big lump sum in 1 year, you could either save up for it or you could take out a bond and repay it. And it's a continual ongoing revenue stream that managed throughout the project. When it comes to those members on the committee, we actually have quite a bit of them here today. We got Bob Laraway, Brett Peavy, and Carol Shannon from the council. Todd Buchanan is a community member at large. Pete D'Ambrosio is a member at large. Bill Keelan from the association. So we've got a good showing from the folks who have been putting in the time and effort to put this proposal together. And that's very important to think about, that this is a proposal put together by this group of individuals. There's a group that has worked together. They've looked at different options. They've looked at different priorities, and they put this together. And hopefully the community would be willing to support it based on the feedback that they've received throughout the meetings they've had so far. You know, when you think about 3 mills, 3 mills is a respectful ask. But how much of your tax dollars right now are staying in the village of Lake Isabella? We as a village levy an operating millage of 0.818 mil. If you throw on the 1 mil that everybody pays for fire, whether you're paying it through the special assessment in the Broomfield side or directly to the township on the Sherman side, and the newly approved 1/3 of a mil for road patrols, 7.7% of every local property tax dollar is paid comes back to the village. 92.3% is going elsewhere. The county, state education tax, the ISD, 3 different debt millages for Chippewa Hill schools, the medical facility, Sherman Township operating, Commission on Aging, IRIDE, county parks. Less than 8% of that dollar is coming back into this community directly. Now, obviously, the others do impact our community, like the schools and the county, but you know, so when you look at all of the taxes you are paying in property taxes, most of it leaves this community. So how much is 3 mills? Well, a mill is $1 of every $1,000 of taxable value. So if you're $40,000 taxable value property, you're paying $10 a month, $120 a year. 75,000, you're paying $225, which up until a couple of years ago was what you paid the association for your dues. 150, you're paying $450. 81.7% of the parcels in the village have a taxable value of $75,000 or less.
81%?
81.7 have a taxable value of $75,000 or less.
What they've been selling for it, don't seem like they'd be 81%.
Lot of lots.
Lot of lots.
Lot of lots. Walt Disney said the way to get started is quit talking and begin doing. And so back in 2021 is when we started to actually doing as opposed to talking. And so that was when the village and the association got together and drafted the conceptual plan that was part of last year's proposal. So the proposal that came out of the work in 21 that was part of the 22 initiative focused a little bit on the southeast corner, the river, and then a handful of bays. What's on the ballot this time and what this plan encompasses is what's on the map there. Multiple different bays, priority areas, southeast corner, the boat launches, the river being the three highest priority areas. That's why those are shaded in pink up there as opposed to orange or yellow. Those are the quantities that the committee has worked to determine needs to come out of these areas. The proposal is based on also the estimates that they've went out and received from three different sources in terms of mechanically dredging, hydraulically dredging in these different areas. So these target areas in the new proposal, the river. The river's been the highest priority last time and this time. The river's got to be fixed. If we don't fix the river, you can't fix the rest of the lake. Because if you can't stop what's coming in, you're never going to solve what happens below it. So this is a drone footage from 2021. And you can see this is during drawdown that the river channel itself, as Mother Nature intended it, is this side of the river, of the island. Back in the 1970s, the property owner there made the river channel for himself. So now during drawdown, water takes the path of least resistance that hits the curve up there at Rowland Road, and it just goes straight down and bypasses everything on the east side of the island, which has caused all that to silt in over time. The boat launch down there that is not usable is right here. And all of those boat slips in that park haven't been used in years. Another target area is the southeast corner. So if you look back on the original depth maps of the lake going back to the 1970s, this is an area of the lake that was originally 5 to 6 feet deep. This is last November when the drawdown was at about 3 feet. That's what you're seeing. Boat launches, another target area. This is the boat launch at Riviera Park up on the river. And you can see the second island forming right there. You know, there's always been an island up above it since the channel was cut. Now the river is basically dumping sediment and about to make another island right in front of the boat launch. The bays, this is Birch Park. You can see that this is again during drawdown. This is about a 5-foot drawdown that most of the bay is exposed and it's got a lot of vegetation on the bottom. And then another area that's part of this proposal are the inflows. This is Indian Creek, which is the one that runs off of Rowland Road. Chippewa Creek is the one that comes in off of River Road. And what you see during a drawdown is all that sediment that has allowed to just kind of stagnate through. Becomes pretty obvious and apparent that it's there and needs to get cleaned out, because once you fill it up, it's going to float, it's going to get back in the lake. Plan. The committee has met, gosh, how many times did we meet this year already? Probably 8, at least ballpark. 8 or 8, 6 or 8. And, you know, they've had good attendance at all the meetings. We've met in this room here. We've had strong public participation and interest. We had strong public participation in the selection process. We had, I think, almost 18 people apply for 3 spots and want to be involved. And we tried to keep them up to speed on the committee work as it's happened. All this is available right on our website. The meeting minutes page, all the meeting packets, meeting minutes, recordings of most of the meetings. But this is the plan that they put together. And this is a plan that this is on our website. The association has the same map at their office. You know, these are the different areas that this committee has looked at, said these are the priority target areas that we need to address in our lake for the long-term future of the community. With that, you're not here to hear me talk. We can definitely open up for questions. We have multiple people from the committee here to help answer questions, give feedback, so fire away.
Right, I know we need dredging desperately, and I know it says there that it's not for bike path or anything else. But the word that bothers me in the ballot says, without limitation.
Yep.
And so it says, improvements Lake Isabella and Chippewa River.
Yep.
How, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, somebody says, well, I wanna put a bike path or a dog path in, that'll improve Lake Isabella.
Can't do it. Well, Lake Isabella is a body of water.
Does it say that there? I
The
mean,
village of Lake Isabella is a governmental entity. They're different entities. So lake improvements millage is specific to the water, and without limitation is in there included so that if you get to a point where, we talked about this at the committee level. Like when it comes to fish restocking, or if you need to do restoration on one of the parks. So if we go through Par Beach, which is the one here at Birdie, or Dead Ends, and you want to reseed that when you're done, after hauling the muck out of there, that's why the without limitations there, so you can include that relative work to the project. So it's gotta be work that is relative to the project, it's gotta be related costs necessary or incidental to these improvements. Can't be anything else. In the committee that was created through the village and the association, are in charge of running this project. They are the ones that, you know, that went out and got the bids, they're the ones that are responsible for where the work is gonna start, where we're going for permitting. That authority has been delegated to them, so you got that check in there as well, that you can't have a committee of 9 people with only 3 of them being on the village, all of a sudden say we're gonna run off the rails and do something crazy.
And then we spent a lot of time discussing the wording of this ballot language. Because it was a point that we wanted to get right and make sure people understood it. And they didn't think that there was other things that could be done. And it was hard to do because of that without limitations that, you know, Tim and the legal language, it's required. Because here's maybe an example. There's oil wells under our lake. We really don't know where they are. We have an idea, but if one gets hit, it gets opened, it needs to be addressed. That would be part of without limitations. And so the oil well would have to get capped, filled, something, because we don't know what might even happen. We don't know what it is. We don't know if it's a pipe. We don't know
I get that.
anything. And so that's where the without limitations would come in. And you see that a lot in municipal construction projects that they'll have, when how they're funding it, they'll have sidelines saying that in case we need to do this, this funding has to happen. You
So
know.
these are otherwise improved Lake Isabella, and that's the physical lake.
Correct. Yeah.
And the Chippewa River.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're not aware of the directional drills under the lake?
Well, there's directional drills, but there's also vertical wells
From 30s,
from the
20s and
30s,
30s.
20s, 40s. Tim has a grid map that we addressed and looked
I
at.
did not realize that there was
Yeah.
under capped wells
I
under.
think we think there's 3.
There's definitely 3. Yeah, so this whole area of, the county was an active oil and gas area for many, many years. See if I got a good.
Well, I know in Mount Pleasant, you know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of older Very old.
That's why they're the Mount Pleasant Oilers, the school, you know? Most of it is in, what we've been able to determine from old maps from the state of Michigan, are gonna be out in this area. Again, these were put in the ground 100 years ago.
Years ago.
There's no GIS coordinates for it. You know. In fact, the old rail line that used to run through this area that went up to Wademan, there was a siding, kind of where Queensway is right now. And there was an active oil well over there. And it had a tanker car parked there that they would swap out every other day because it would get full of oil. So I mean, this is an active oil and gas area. There's an active oil well or gas well off of Rollin Road on the Van Hoy's property. Yep.
You can hear it when the wind blows, right?
You can hear it and smell it sometimes too. You know, and there was an active gas well up until 2007, 2008,
15 years ago.
right on South Park. The peninsula that runs out of South Park, there's a gas well out there. And the people that lived here on Peninsula had the greatest deal of a lifetime because that gas well gave these people here
Yeah, some of them had gas.
free gas service.
Yeah, they did.
And it went back this way.
To Alan Cook's house,
circle, out to
Cook's farm,
Cook's farm.
and then Alan Cook had it too.
Yep. I remember a builder on Circle Drive wondering if he could hot connect to that. Not to name any names, builder on Circle Drive, Todd.
I don't know anything about
I
that.
don't know anything about that either. You know, that pipe was as, hell, was laying on top of the
Laying on
ground.
the ground, yeah.
I had a guy come in like, hey, that's an old chain link fence, I'm just gonna rip it up with my tractor. It's like, no, I don't think you're gonna do that.
Oh, back in the time, I know there's no regulation,
No,
No,
but some of those old wells and.
when consumers came and did gas to that side of the lake, they're like, do you have any maps on where this is at? And we're like,
Yeah.
nope. There's this little hand painted sign that says gas line.
it barely says that.
I'll go and watch.
Any pressure there, I'm surprised they ever rusted out, but no.
Yeah, and it, they came in, they blew it and they capped it. And that was sounded like a banshee for about 10 minutes, just whistling out of the hole after they did that when I plugged it, but.
You probably started it going again.
Okay, so I have a question, because I guess I heard something at the beginning that I was unaware of. Vacant lot owners are not going to be paying the 3 mils?
No, they are,
Oh,
They can't vote for
They
it
can't
if
vote.
they don't register.
they're not registered voters.
So let's say if they have a vacant lot to get access to the lake and they're registered to vote in Mount Pleasant, sorry about their luck, they have no say.
If it passes, they're
Okay, yeah.
paying the 3 mils.
But they have to pay the taxes.
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
people that this is their principal residence,
Get the vote.
correct?
Yeah, if you're registered to vote for the village taxes.
I just ran into that because I called about mine and they said, well, you're not registered in the village, because we have 2 homes in
Mhm.
Brookfield Township.
Yeah.
But one's in the village, one's not. And she said, well, you gotta go to Secretary of State, you gotta get that changed. I was
Yeah.
unaware of that. So really, there's really only a percentage of people voting on this,
Mhm.
a low percentage.
Snowbirds, no.
So the village has 1,009 housing units. Our estimate is 85% are owner occupied or occupied renters. So 15% of those, 150 give or take, are seasonal second homes. So our official calculation from the census is 1,829. We think it's higher. We're challenging that, but as of the last election, there were 1,500 give or take, 1,450 registered voters in the village of Lake Isabella.
I just have one other question. You mentioned fish planting, that's always been done separate. Why was it mentioned in this?
Based on the number of years that you're gonna have a prolonged drawdown through the winter to do this work. It doesn't make a lot of sense, I think, to do continual restocking throughout that process, that you're gonna wanna hold that more frequently to the end, if possible.
Why, think it's gonna kill the fish off?
With a big drawdown, probably.
Big drawdown, good.
We're going way farther than what we've ever done.
Oh, okay, I just didn't know why that.
Be a
came up.
swamp.
That goes, we just. If we do have a big fish kill, we wanna be able to.
Restock it. Yeah.
Restock
Right.
when we're done.
when we're done.
We're not gonna do it
Hopefully it's not
every
10
year.
years though,
No,
I wouldn't think.
It'll be a learning process as we go and start doing it and seeing what happens, just like any other construction that we are unaware of. We'll figure it out, and then the first year in which we probably do the dredging, we'll be a lot smarter,
Mhm.
you know, and then be able to project what's gonna happen when we start seeing it happen.
Okay,
In these pink and areas that are the worst currently.
Them are our priority
Those
spots.
priorities.
highest priority, yeah.
Like the river, like Tim's talking about,
Right.
showing us all those pictures, that's the critical area.
Yeah.
You know, and then the boat launch ramps, we figured everybody uses those, them are the parks that people gain access to. So that's affected by the most people, that's what we were going for.
Yeah.
Whatever is getting the best effect on most people.
Right.
Like somebody that lives on Fairway Drive that wanted to dredge it in front of their house, no,
No,
that's not what we're worried about, you know?
Right.
And we're worried about things that affect everyone first.
Well, when I read the ballot, cause I get them, vote, in by mail, but I was confused with that wording.
Yeah.
And when this flyer come out, it was plain, it was very plain, but they didn't match. I mean, I wish the ballot was printed like a
Flyer.
brochure.
Okay, that's because of the legal language.
That's the kind of language we understand better
yeah.
than trying to.
And that's why we suffered through trying to write it right,
Yeah.
because we don't wanna write it legal either. We're normal people. We
Yeah.
understand regular words.
Because that was very confusing.
And that was candidly one of the reasons why we didn't wanna go the bond approach.
Well,
Because the bond approach was too legalese for everybody in terms of maintaining that tax exempt status and you're reporting like. For the association, it's not a public entity, that puts them in some uncomfortable spaces in terms of what they have to do for, you know, transparency purposes, quite frankly.
well, I know a lot of people, don't understand this, right, on the ballots that they've got. And so they've already voted, I've talked to several,
Mhm.
they've already voted no on it, because they don't understand it. And that's the problem. You gotta
That's
have,
why we're having these meetings.
I know, but as you see, they're not all here.
yeah.
they're not gonna come-
They haven't been at our previous meetings either.
I know it, but I'm just saying.
But if they're after
it would
people
be
are
wonderful.
voted, then it doesn't help.
If you could print the ballots as clear as you did the brochure, that would make it a heck of a lot better for the novice to understand it. I mean. Yeah, that one word's a little distracting. That's the area.
Put in there, because if we would have listed everything we wanted to do, and then something come up, we couldn't do it with the money. because it
Right.
Wasn't listed.
And
Well,
like any
and I
project, you
understand
can't, you can't, you don't know ahead of time.
Yeah, but
Right.
I feel good about it now, because it says they can spell it, you know, it's fill the lake line.
Yeah.
But, yeah, but that's, you know, to tell you the truth, a lot of people are taking it wrong.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately, you're gonna get no votes out of that.
I talked to someone on Saturday morning at the lumberyard that was so totally misinformed.
Yeah,
I said, well, I'm done convincing you, because you don't know anything about what we're really doing
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And then, you know, he wondered why our association dues couldn't pay for that.
Mm,
And I'm like, well, you know, the balance sheet of the association is online and you can look at that and see where every ounce of that money goes.
yeah,
And there's money that goes into lake restoration, but not
not,
$3 million
not
for
major.
12 years.
not major.
Well,
Yeah,
that
but-
leads into another problem, though. There's people that have signed out of the association dues, and that should change as well.
And whether they signed out of it or just refused to pay them.
Whatever,
There's
they're
that
not
group too.
paying, that's
Right.
Yeah,
So that's not helping our lake restoration,
Yeah,
correct?
they
Yeah.
need to change
It's,
that.
and
I
see,
know
that's,
some that,
that is tied to your building use restrictions. Your
Yeah.
building use restrictions require the $30 a lot fee.
Right, but they still use the lake, so.
That's what's required is a $30 one. The membership fee is not required in the building use restrictions.
it's not required.
No,
What about when they sell their home? Will it be attached to
no,
them?
that's against the law, they have
No,
to do
only
that.
the lot.
They used to do it.
You've gotta pay the $30 per lot fee. That's in the deed
So-
restrictions.
So many are getting by without that then.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a billboard and they put all their names up on it,
Yeah.
right on the sign.
But you
You're not
also,
participating.
No, just call them
Yeah.
cheap asses of the lake. And then expose them all. Because then,
But, you know, but it's good to know. I mean,
oh, that's right,
yeah,
that is right.
my
because-
thought was, you're gonna get taxed when you sell.
But you also have,
No.
the village's boundaries are different than the association as well. So you have areas of the village that are not in the LIPOA.
Correct. That'd be like where Blaine lives.
Wayne lives, the airport,
Yeah.
the southeast corner or southwest corner where Whispering Pines, the Van Hoy's property, the wedding barn's not in the association. You know, the houses across from Unified or Randell or whatever they are now, that's not in the village, or not, it's in the village, but not in the association. Everything, you know, out of bounds,
The thing is Electrolux, I think. now is-
yeah, electro.
Electrolux something.
Yeah,
I went by it and I'm like, signs changed again?
it's gonna be Randell for me.
Right, that's what I call it.
Is the right side of Birdie, out of the village?
So you need south side?
If you're going out to the clubhouse or,
So no, that's in the village,
that's village there,
that's in the village.
where the golf course crosses.
Yep, that's in the
Third
village,
pole.
and the village boundary there actually goes, all the way. So if you go down Coldwater Road, there's a farmhouse, it's got like a stone.
Yes, yeah.
That's in the village. That's
Alan
not
Brooks'
property in the
house.
village.
They're in the village?
They're in the village,
Oh, they are?
yes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, his house backs right up to,
Yeah.
clubhouse.
Yeah, there goes
But across the
behind
street-
Carlos Greases' house.
okay.
Across the street, it doesn't start till you get to our DPW building where Wilcox used to be, so
Mhm.
Unified, Randell, Electrolux is not in the village.
Too bad, we need the text button.
You know,
Darn it.
that is an important point to think about, though, when it comes to Lake Isabel's ability to fund stuff like this. Our issue is not the tax base. We have a tax base of $100 million. We have a tax base bigger than Ithaca, bigger than Clare, comparable to Clare. We just don't levy a millage. You just saw it, 0.818 mil.
Mhm.
You know, that's the issue on the equation. It's not that we don't have the resources to do it, we just choose not to do it as a community.
When will that start, if it passes?
Next summer's tax bills, 2024.
No, I mean, the actual work.
Oh,
Possibly a year
Possibly
after
this-
that.
well, possibly this fall, actually.
Oh, true, with
Yeah.
the testing and.
Testing and get everything lined up for permitting and,
We'll have to start the testing.
yeah.
Stuff, get the hits around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm surprised that there's some uncapped wells under the lake.
Oh, they're capped.
Yeah, we're not uncapped.
Per se,
I meant
Yeah.
capped.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know, I worked for natural gas companies and, the piping that they put in years ago was not good piping. Not at all.
You know, that's, so we've already begun, the association's already begun doing some of the testing, so they've tested sites on the river. And they've tested some of the sites in that big area off of Peninsula Drive.
Mhm.
And one of the things that's changed on the state's end of the equation is from when we started to do this, they now want basically a top and a bottom sample. They don't just want one of that sediment, they want what it is at the top and what it is at the bottom. And as a committee, that is something that they've talked about, and factored into the scope of this project is we don't see the regulatory process getting easier in the future. You know, we see that there's going to be more metals you've got to test for and account for, whether it's PFAS or whatever, that the hill gets steeper the longer you drag this out, is the reality of the project.
They've doubled the amount of tests, or more than doubled the amount of tests you need for an area.
Required,
Last year, just
Really?
from a year ago.
oh yeah,
You get
Everything
new people
changes.
in landing and
Oh, yeah.
everything changes. And it's always
But-
more.
but we're gonna have to dredge down as deep, so you get the hard pan, excuse me.
yeah, the old bottom.
To get the hard
That's
pan,
where they want to go.
yeah, which is best.
How did George say that was up in the river, almost 7 feet?
There are areas there that are definitely bored.
4 or 5?
May I ask, where is the spoilage going?
So that is, one thing that is kind of fluid at this point in time. There's been discussion that some of these parks could accommodate doing some storage there, whether it's South Park to raise up that corner and where it's always marshy. Our fallback is our sewer lagoon property, which is at the end of Baseline Road. It's an 80-acre parcel that the village owns. It has right now 2 fully excavated, never gonna be used sewer lagoon that are 4.5 acres in size and about 8 feet deep.
Is that gonna have to be tested for contaminants?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
I thought Lucky Robinson offered property.
For the river part potentially.
Oh,
So,
okay.
And that would be the hydraulic dredging, you get piped over
Yeah,
there,
'cause it's closer too.
yeah,
Yep.
closer,
So that would
Could
be-
Pumped out.
that would be up at the river.
yeah, that would be this part right here.
Mhm.
Because it's,
You're gonna use dozers and some of it.
Yeah, if we can do it during drawdown,
There's some, you can get in with dozers.
during the drawdown, yeah.
Yeah, I thought maybe it would have to pump it all.
No,
no, if we were to pump it all, the cost is.
Oh, God.
because
Yeah,
that
hydraulic excavating.
Take forever.
a lot more expensive than it is.
A lot more.
Yes.
So is this expected to help our weed issue?
It's certainly not gonna hurt your weed issue.
Right.
I hope it's gonna
We
help.
want it to,
I
yeah.
would say, hope it's gonna
I'm
help.
tired of pulling it off the top of my engine.
Well, no, chemicals they put in the lake. that's not-
Yeah. You gotta get rid of them. Go down deep enough, get rid of those things.
You know, the thing too about the weed issues, the thing that we've noticed from doing the drawdowns and also the testing that has been done so far is the different nature of the material from the river down to that corner. You're getting your heavier, more organic stuff in that river channel. You're getting all your fines down at this end of the lake. And while we've not had any E. coli problems, you know, bees have always been the trigger when we do an E. coli test, that if it's bad. Because we do test the lake, we tested the Rollin Road Bridge up here. We test here at South Park, we test here at Essex, and we test up at Party Point, and then downstream the tribe test at School Road. And what we've historically seen is that E. coli number is always the highest coming in up here.
Up from the river.
Yeah. So if you've got organic stuff in here, that stuff's gonna stay in there.
Drive another 2 miles up the river and you'll see 2 cow farms with all the cows walking in the river, and that's exactly why we have.
Oh, yeah.
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 And then that exacerbates our weeds.
Yep.
Everything. So, and you won't change that.
Well, you can't change it.
Farmer will look at you and smile and say, thanks for stopping.
And it got, you know, it got better once we started testing and we let it be known that we were gonna test the E. coli for source contamination. So SVSU can test it whether it's human or bovine. And the following year, the numbers on Rollin Road Bridge went down drastically. But, you know, the Chippewa is a surface toad. So you're always gonna have the issue of runoff, whether it's animal waste, farm waste, or just sediment. You
And
know,
that's where it starts.
yeah, the chip isn't a, you know, lovely spring-fed brook like you get up at Kitchkatippi and it's coming out of swamp. Barren.
Well, I'm gonna have to go to decaf coffee now. I can't afford regular. Oh, God. Holy cow.
Keep turning around.
Yeah. I guess. Oh, I'll do that.
Other thoughts, questions? You got 6 people from the committee here. That I deeply appreciate showing up.
I urge everybody to talk to your neighbors.
Yeah.
You've been here, you got this. And make sure they understand what it is. You know,
I think what they're, most of them are afraid of is they thought that was an open end burst. And
it's not.
yeah, and that's, I think what most of us are concerned about.
The contingencies are mostly, well, say you've got some plumbing at home that you think you got everything and, oh, well, geez, I'm missing a fitting. So that's the contingency,
Yeah.
putting gas in your truck and going to buy that fitting.
Yeah.
You're not gonna buy something for your wife's, you know, or
Put it in
for
the
the
bike
kitchen,
Which
you know, for the kitchen, yeah. Right,
You're
you're
going
going,
bike path and you gotta put it in all the way around the leg.
yeah, so.
You know, and
I vote for a swimming pool before I vote for a bike. playing field.
Those chemicals are pretty expensive.
I don't care.
Where do you think
I
they
had
put
one
the
of those
swimming pool,
suckers.
right next to your house?
That'd be fine. don't
Yeah, I
care.
know a good spot where you put a swimming pool right under where one used to be.
Hey, I'm cheap. Sam's Club's got a nice 16-foot round for $4.39 right now.
I had
That's
one
probably
of
what we
those.
can afford right now, but.
Yeah,
This is on, you got a question in the back.
I did, my mind is just kind of blown here for a minute. We have this village of all these people who have access to this lake, but only a small percentage of us are part of the LIPOA.
I think last count, they were about 1,000 members, is that?
Yeah, we're like, a month ago is 957 members.
Why isn't everyone a member
Well,
automatically?
the way the charter and stuff was written up, it's not mandatory.
Correct.
That you be a member of the Lake Association.
So
If you're a village.
Their lot
Like
doesn't make
Canadian
you a
Lake
member.
is,
Yeah.
you
No,
don't have a choice.
no, everybody has, every lot has a, $30-$60 fee.
They need to make sure everybody. has it.
That's been that way since
Oh, yeah.
in 1970. So that $30, 1970. Was
A little
a lot
different
of
than-
money compared to today.
24.
Where's the dividing line? How?
That's never been raised.
They
I don't,
some
it's
people
it's
out
like a
there.
hassle to get it raised, nobody's.
They go to the LNPOA office and say, I want to opt out.
Some people don't.
So
even-
basically,
You don't even
just
have to
opt
pay
out.
the
Well,
dues.
after, yeah,
You don't have to opt out. In order, if you belong to LIPOA, you're a member, you get a key for the
Laundry.
launch, boat launch.
For $25.
It's free, it's just a deposit.
Okay, you get that key. If you don't belong to LIPOA, you don't get a key, so you cannot,
Use the lake technically.
and you
Well, they
cannot rent,
do.
you
Or you
cannot,
can go to
you
Gilmore Park
cannot
and get it.
rent
Pavilion.
any of the pavilions.
So really what you're saying is the people that are members are those who are paying, and the people who are not members are the ones that do not pay.
The association.
Yeah, and
Yes.
there is, part of the reason we have those boat launch things all over the chain and lock on it is to keep people out that are not members. And the people that are members, we keep telling them, lock it up when you're done. Well, somebody wanted to get in, no, he's got his own key, you lock it up.
But Estes Park and Lincoln Park doesn't prevent them from going in there and still using those facilities.
But they can still go in the park.
They can't get a boat spot, you know, they
Well, they can't
can't.
get a boat park.
You can't go spot, you can't rent the pavilion at Essex, but you can go play on the stuff.
I know two people who don't pay that use Estes
Yeah.
Park for their family.
Cheaper for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has to.
It all goes back to
Somebody in
these
the
right here.
family must be a
Must be
member
renting it.
that's renting the pavilion because they cannot rent it
Right.
if you're not a LIPOA member.
All they have to do is go in there and use it.
The security guy will kick their asses out.
Oh, yeah.
So each of the 17 flats in the association have this document, their own building and use restrictions. This is where it all comes from.
Let's talk about security.
And
Why is two people in the truck with security?
They might be going and picking up something.
I
who
can,
knows?
I can.
No, it's every day.
Yeah, the next question is, why are they all at the party store at 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One of them's
Great side.
security.
Yeah,
When you see two people in that truck, they're the ones that are doing the lawn mowing
yeah.
and other chores, you know, they repair fences and that. And they use that truck. They're not actually on security duty.
So if you don't have a truck, you can't work.
No, you gotta-
Yeah,
one
if you don't have a
yeah.
truck, you can't work.
You gotta get, you know.
In theory,
No, be real.
There's
We
40
don't
some
have
trucks.
that kind of security. We need two people in.
No,
Be
we
real.
don't. I'm telling you, they're not on security patrol.
Having
They're
mowed
actual
that
workers.
ditch in front of South Park.
No, George says no.
well, wait a minute,
So this
in
is-
South Park, no.
Yeah.
These are some questions you.
I think
can
we're
bring
going
up.
off the rails,
Like,
maybe.
oh, me, oh.
But you just looked like you would at least talk with me about it.
Well, I do, but that's. the
At least I
reason-
got it off my
That's
chest.
the reason there's two people in that truck. They're not security people. You know, about the only time there's somebody working security is on a Saturday or Sunday. I don't think you'll see two of
No, generally one person. Yes.
Let me answer Mrs. Hunt's question here. So in each of the building use restrictions, paragraph 20. In order to maintain and improve the Lake Isabella area on April 1st of each year, the owner of each lot shall pay to the Lake Isabella Property Owners Association the sum of $30. Funds so collected shall be used to maintain the dam and general future maintenance, beautification, and betterment of the Lake Isabella area. So if you wanted to flip the fees, you've got to amend these in each plat. And to do that, you need 51% of the property owner or the lots to sign off on that amendment.
You need plot.
In each lot, in each plat, and it goes into effect the next renewal date, because these renew in 10-year increments at this point in time. So
When was that one written?
what's that?
When was that one written?
This originally was written. And that's the plat 3, which would have been 71.
Yeah.
Which is the plat that the Hunts live in,
Roughly how many plats are there?
17.
17?
Yeah, we have a spreadsheet that has all this and all the renewals, and we had worked with the association back when Arlene Plank was still involved. Said, you know, guys, you wanna get cracking, you know, you've got the smaller plats coming up next, where Latinas Point has 13 lots, you know, you need 7 to sign off on a change there, you know. Start small, get your feet wet, go after them. And now we're into the big flats where, you know, north is 335 lots. South is 172. So, I know, flipping the fee structure would be one thing, but that's how you'd have to do
Bring
it.
that up at the annual meeting.
In a couple of weeks.
What, 19th of August? That would be a good topic to bring up.
And the village has always been supportive of the amendment process because, you know, we do own lots in some of these subdivisions. We've always happily signed off and supported those efforts when they wanted it, and so. But you also have run the risk of like Air Park. They wrote themselves out of the association back in 93, 94, something like that.
Now they wrote new Aaron instructions.
But they,
How can we do that?
We don't know. They're part of the air park and we haven't figured it out yet, but I'm working on it. Because they never had a quorum at a meeting. They've never had 50% of the property owners. They're never advertised in the paper of record. Everything wrong about it.
Right.
And so then they say they can, take my property if I don't pay them $50 and yeah. And I'm like, number one, I'm not signing your paper. Here's $50, mow the lawn.
so like, when you do an amendment, you have to record it at the register of deeds, and you need to record with it the accompanying signature
Information.
from
They
the.
say it's registered at the.
So I know in 2004, there was an amendment in Air Park that had the necessary documentation to do it.
Cause this just got registered. It would have been when I bought.
That's a newer one.
That would have been what? 20, 21,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yep.
And I've asked questions. Nobody's given me answers. And so I'm like, nice, thanks for your piece of paper. It's like Scott tissue to me.
So back to this. Any other questions, comments? Appreciate you guys coming out. Mr. Hunter?
Are you gonna have to retest some of the areas you've already tested?
No, not from the standpoint of what's already been done. You need to retest to get that second sample. So like they've done the top sample, they need to get the bottom, at like the river. They went back and I think got some of the bottoms on the peninsula area, but by the time that they found out about that, it went from dry to being under 3 feet of water. Kind of complicated a little bit.
Bill, do them tests have a limit lifetime?
7 years,
Yeah, like 7 or 10 years.
7 or 10, yeah.
I know George mentioned it.
Cause your permits are good for 5. So, and that's one of the reasons why it says without limitation, so you can go back and do that same area a second time under the same permit if you need to. So if you clean everything out and you wanna go back and get the river again, to get the sediment out that's accumulated, you can do that. It's not a one-time, we're gonna dredge it and
Walk away.
walk away and
No more money.
pat ourselves on the back and say, let people in 30 years deal with this.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Go on.